The Minnesota Vikings have found themselves in quite the predicament this year. Sam Darnold has played a lot better than anyone thought he would play, and he's already thrown for over 4,000 yards and 35 touchdowns, far outplaying at least what I expected him to play this year. And I didn't even expect him to play very long before he got benched for JJ McCarthy. But unfortunately, JJ McCarthy had the season-ending injury. I believe it was the first week of the preseason. So because of how well Sam Darnold has played, there's a few different decisions the Minnesota Vikings are going to have to make this offseason. They could just let Sam Darnold walk into free agency, but I really don't see that happening, as the highest pick they'll get is a third-round comp pick, but that also depends on how well they do in free agency. So I really just don't see Sam Darnold just being able to let go into free agency, but that would be the best choice. The most player-friendly choice for him is he would be able to pick any team he wants to play for and have really the most amount of leverage he'll ever have in his career. He's 27 years old. He just put on an amazing season, and depending on how he does in the playoffs, I heard he could be worth low $50 million a year. Now, the second option they have is they could just franchise tag him for a year, let JJ sit under him for a year. Hopefully JJ McCarthy remains healthy next year, and he's able to, sit and learn under Sam Darnold. But I also don't see them doing free agency, as that would be, I think, 40 to 50 million, and they wouldn't be able to push that down years because, there's no years in his contract, since the franchise tag is only a 1 year fully guaranteed deal. Now, in my opinion, this is the most likely. I think the Vikings are going to sign Sam Darnold to a long-term deal, probably a 5-year, $50 million to $55 million contract. I don't think he'll get, the $60 million Dak deal. Now, if they do sign Sam Darnold to a long-term contract, they're going to have to make a decision on JJ McCarthy. Now, they could trade JJ McCarthy. I heard Colin say that the Seahawks should trade for JJ McCarthy, which, Gino. He has moments where he looks like the best quarterback in the league. He just makes those insane throws, but sometimes it's just those fourth quarter, third quarter interceptions that in one-score games that we can win. He throws a late interception, and that's game. And not to mention, he's coming off of an injury. We only scored 6 points against Chicago. So who knows, maybe Schneider would pull that, would make that call and see if he could get JJ McCarthy on the Seahawks, maybe learn under Gino for a year. Another team that could trade for JJ McCarthy could also be the Jets. If Aaron Rodgers comes back for one more year, he could learn under Aaron for a year, depending on whoever the Jets hire as a GM and head coach. If they want to keep Rodgers, what direction they want to go in, I don't know. That's a whole fiasco I don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole. Now, what I think is most likely is they're going to sign Sam Darnold to a long-term deal, and they're going to keep JJ McCarthy because, they already have him on the team. They know he can play. I mean, he just won a national championship less than 2 years ago. People can say what they want about how much of that was the defense in the running game and Harbaugh, but, he still played his part. He was still the quarterback of the team. Now, if the Vikings do decide to sign Sam Darnold to a long-term deal, they have about $76 million in cap space. It wouldn't be $50 million this year. It would probably be closer to $20 million, and then they would push some of that later down the road, as these GMs tend to do with these long-term quarterback contracts. So, they would have a lot of cap space to play around with this offseason to kind of build their team a little bit more, assuming they don't go on and win the Super Bowl. But who knows? Sunday night, we got a really good game. It's Thursday afternoon while I'm recording this, so we still got about 3 days until the game. But they could go out possibly in free agency, get another guard or offensive lineman. They could always use another defensive lineman. I mean, honestly, in the NFL, you can never have too many defensive and offensive linemen, and you see teams every week. I mean, Seattle, week 4, we went against Detroit, and our entire starting 4 defensive linemen were out. Like, what were we supposed to do? We couldn't stop the run. Now, a lot of this depends on how Sam Darnold does during the playoffs and whether they win Sunday night or not. Because if they lose Sunday night and then they get boat raced in the wild card round, they might not sign Sam Darnold to the long-term deal. But I think he's played well enough this year that they should at least give it to him. Like, at the minimum, they should franchise tag him and see, hey, can this go on another year? Because honestly, I think it can, especially with the weapons that Sam Darnold has around him. But who knows, maybe after you pay Sam Darnold and you have to let a few people go, the team's not as good, he stops performing as well. I mean, we're kind of seeing that this year with Brock Purdy, even though they haven't paid him yet, but he hasn't had his stars around him. And when they do pay him, he's not always going to have those stars around him. So we're going to see how that turns out down there in San Francisco. But if the Vikings do well, I mean, hell, if they win the Super Bowl this year, $60 million a year for Sam Darnold, like, I wouldn't be surprised if they gave him a Dak contract or better than the Dak contract. But I'm really curious to see how Sam Darnold does in the playoffs, because I'm pretty sure he's won more games this year than he has in his entire career with the Jets. Which, speaking of which, if the Vikings decide they don't want Sam Darnold, would Sam Darnold be open to a reunion with the Jets? I'm sure the Jets would love to take him back, considering the quarterback play they've gotten these last however many years since they've had good quarterback play. I think since I've started watching football, their best quarterbacks probably have been Ryan Fitzpatrick, which, you know, career journeyman. You know, he was in the NFL a long time. He wasn't terrible at football. He never really got his opportunity to be that long-term guy, but, you know, when that's the best QB your franchise has put out there in the last 10 years, it's pretty embarrassing. I mean, Aaron Rodgers has looked really good the last, I don't know, month or so. Since the Jets have been eliminated, Aaron Rodgers has turned it on. They're not winning games, but he's looking good. He's putting up numbers. He's one touchdown away from his 500 touchdown, which, you know, hope he gets it this week and see if he calls it a career this year or after this Sunday. That is going to be all for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will be back Saturday after the Saturday games to give you guys a reaction. Anyways, have a good one.